So today I will be reviewing Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. There will be no spoilers in this review, but I might have a controversial take on this movie because right now there's a lot of animosity or love towards this movie. It's kind of weird. It's like love or hate. It kind of reminds me when The Last Jedi came out, where you had people who loved it and then people who hated it. And anytime like you went into any of these groups with the other opinion, it's almost like there's like some sort of tribalism. But anyways, here's my review for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So to start off this review, I do want to clarify I'm actually not the biggest Indiana Jones fan. I didn't grow up with Indiana Jones. I mean, I am a big Steven Spielberg fan, so, but I didn't grow up watching the movies. It wasn't until I was like 18, 19. It was when I got out of high school. I went on this big like film critic part of like early on my channel. I went on this big like journey of wanting to become a film critic and watching all the big movies that I missed out on. And one of them just so happened to be the Indiana Jones movies. I just didn't have anyone to introduce me. I actually got the trilogy right there. I think you can see it like right here where my finger's at. And so I didn't really go into this movie with nostalgia or anything. To me, I feel like that's a difference that I have in my review than most people. Is most people grew up with Indiana Jones. They have deep love. And I like the movies. They're fun. I even think Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, while it's a dumb movie and I know no one likes it, I enjoyed it. And to me, I think the Indiana Jones movies are just fun. And to me, I don't really have that nostalgia that people have. So that really differentiates me. And I know I said that, but like really, I want to emphasize that on that because I know people are gonna watch this review and be like, "Oh, you're not a real indie fan." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm not," because I didn't grow up with Indiana Jones. I like the movies. I don't love the movies. I like them. They're fun. They're enjoyable. But just want to clarify that. So I went to go watch Dial of Destiny. I think it's a pretty solid film. First, let me talk about some performances. Harrison Ford was actually really good. He's an old Indiana Jones in this movie. And it's really interesting to see him in this stage of his life. I always like seeing movies where the characters are older, seeing our heroes now in a different time period. And I like what they did with Indiana Jones. I like that they show you that, he focused so much on his adventurous life that it almost kind of consumed him, and now he has so much regret. And I like stories about regret. I like stories about people wanting to change the past. That's a big theme in this movie, and I like that. I like seeing movies about this, and I honestly think that's kind of a moral of the story. I think it's supposed to be about, when you're aging out, no matter how popular or iconic you were in your time period, people just kind of forget about you. And I think that applies to this generation, Gen Z. I feel like a lot of people in Gen Z didn't grow up with Indiana Jones. I was talking to my friends about how I'm going to go watch this movie, and none of them sounded excited. None of them were talking about Indiana Jones. All the discussions I've heard about Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny has been by like older people who are above the age of 30, 40, 50, talking about how they grew up with these movies and how much they love Indiana Jones. And so I feel like this movie almost applies to, it almost mixes, he's this hero, but he's almost a forgotten hero. I mean, people know him, it's just that people didn't love the movies growing up. You can even see this with this generation, like people my age. I've seen more people like the prequels than the original. But I also think it's because we grew up more with the prequels than the original. Although I didn't grow up with either. At most, I only grew up with Clone Wars when it came out on Disney XD. And then eventually I watched Star Wars when I was like 16. I love the Star Wars movies. I love Anakin. He's one of my favorite characters of all time. So just want to clarify that. But I didn't grow up with it. And I feel like this movie really has this nice story about aging out, how different life is, and no matter what you did in the past, people are going to forget that. I like it that he's this old grumpy man. It's such a different story, and it feels superhuman with that. And I love what Harrison Ford did with the role. James Mangold, I believe, is the one that directed this film. I think he did really well at portraying that. The adventure in this film, I enjoyed it. I had fun. This movie had funny moments. There's a good time in this movie. I feel like this movie's the one difference that I'll say that this movie has over the previous Indiana Jones movies is this one is, of course, the character of Indiana Jones being older. in those movies, you saw this young man. He's attractive. He loves archaeology, and all the women love him. And he's just having fun. Doesn't care. In each movie, he has like a different love interest. He's just enjoying life. He's just having fun. But in this one, the major difference is he's no longer that young guy. He's older, and he has a lot of regrets in his life. There's so much pain in his life. And I like that they go into it, but it is significantly different. I feel like if you don't like that, you're probably not going to enjoy this movie. But if you do like that, then you probably are going to enjoy this movie. It's like a mixture of both. But Mads Mikkelsen, I got to talk about Mads Mikkelsen. His villain motivation, going to be vague about it. They show in the trailers, he believes that Hitler wasn't as good as what he should have been, and he made mistakes. Because obviously, the Indiana Jones movies are all about Indy fighting the Nazis. That's like the most common trope in these films, and I loved it. I like that this movie still stays true, and I feel like this movie stays true to a lot of it. To an extent, it feels like something that AI created. It kind of felt like ChatGPT was like, okay, this is everything you need in a nostalgic filled movie. Like, get all these quips, get the hat back, everything. Oh yeah, yada yada yada. And it felt like the villain motivation felt that way, but I'm fine with it because it's not an Indiana Jones movie if he isn't fighting Nazis. You know, it's like the Avengers not fighting a third act CGI army of aliens or robots or something like that. And the same applies for Indiana Jones fighting Nazis. And I really like Mads Mikkelsen. Mads Mikkelsen is honestly a phenomenal actor. I loved him in Doctor Strange. I loved him in Fantastic Beasts. I really like what he does. And every time he's on screen, I just have fun. I enjoy him as a character. But what's funny is that he is literally the stereotype of a Nazi in any movie, because I feel like he's played Nazis forever. Like, I remember when he got casted in this film, I'm like, oh, perfect. He fits the Nazi role. And I might get this video demonetized because I'm saying Nazi a lot, but he really fits that in his motivation, everything, the goal. And I like how this movie starts off with a young Indy. And the way they CGI, it looks good. I think this might be the best. I don't think it's ever looked this good since probably Tamora Morrison in Aquaman when he's younger. Because with Luke Skywalker, it looks odd. Especially with the Flash movie, the cameos that we saw, it looked odd. In this movie, the CGI for a young Indiana Jones looks cool. I like that they show you that Indiana Jones and Jürgen Voller, who is the character that Mads Mikkelsen plays. I really like that whole dynamic, of how they met in the past and now they meet now that they're older. And the action in this movie, while it wasn't great, it was definitely fun. Like, it's a fun time where I'm just like, oh, I wonder how this is going to happen, because the Indiana Jones movies have been silly. Now, I'm also saying that because, again, I don't have nostalgia for this movie or for these characters at all. But something I've always said is that the Indiana Jones action and everything has always been silly. It's always been coincidental. I mean, one of the ones for the first movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, in that film, quite literally, Indy is fighting this big buff guy, and it just so happens that a helicopter thing is just and then freaking murders him. So it's like Indiana Jones movies have always had these kind of funny coincidence things. This movie stays true to that, but I will say there's some mixed aspects that I'll get into later. But the number one thing I feel like people really want to hear my opinion on is the character played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. There's so much controversy with this character, whether you have these YouTubers that cry about wokeness all the time, like, whoa. And I remember people crying because she was going to replace Indiana Jones. And I feel like these people really need to start apologizing, because remember Lashana Lynch? I remember everyone making rumors for 2 years being like, oh, is she the new James Bond? And then we come out and it's like, yeah, they're not going to do a sequel to the Daniel Craig movies, and yet people freaked out for nothing. Everyone loved that movie, No Time to Die, and then everyone forgot about it, but never an apology. Like, this girl just got a lot of racism and a lot of sexism for years, only to have people just forget about it. It's like, damn, bro, like, this ain't, like, come on, like, don't be that dumb. Obviously, they're not going to do that. So, with this movie, Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, not a big fan of her. She's an asshole quite literally nearly the entirety of the film. Now, later on in the movie, she kind of warms up to you for a bit, but her character because her character changes majorly during the movie, but it doesn't feel organic. It kind of feels like they were like, oh, wait, we're supposed to make her lovable. So, Yeah, the writing on this character, they just forgot to make her lovable. And at times at the movie, she screws over Indiana Jones. I do like their, like I love, like I really liked how they wrote that Indy has love for her. She even calls her Wombat. It's her granddaughter. It's his granddaughter. I accidentally used the wrong pronoun. And they have occasional back and forths of where you can tell that they knew each other for a long time, and that he saw her grow up. But overall, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, her character just really isn't an asshole. She's just kind of annoying. She's just kind of there. And it's not because woke reasons or anything, because this really is an Indiana Jones movie. And ultimately, the character you root for and love is Indy. But Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character is just kind of meh. She was just annoying for a long period of time. And never in this movie did I like her character. She was just kind of annoying. She was just... And I get what they were trying to do, because Indiana Jones, when you actually look at those movies objectively, he did come off as an asshole. But the difference is, Indiana Jones always went for the moral good. He always knew to do the right thing, and he did heroic things. While Phoebe Waller-Bridge in this movie, she's just kind of a thief. She's an asshole. But later on in the movie, that all changes. But the change feels so drastic and so like it almost felt like they didn't know how to write it, that they just kind of were hoping that you forgot about it. And that now also takes me to some more criticisms of the movie. This movie's fun, and it's even funny, and I enjoyed it. But later on the third act is very interesting. I like what they did, but I like the third act, but I don't like the ending. The ending of the movie felt anticlimactic, and every review is saying that. I was like, what do they mean by that? And then I watched the movie myself, and I'm like, okay, now I know what you mean. But really, it just felt super weird. Like, I was wondering, like, really, this is the best they could write? And I'm gonna say that maybe this is unpopular, because most people, even the people who don't like this movie, even they say that the worst Indiana Jones movie is still Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I still like. But I'm going to say this right now. The ending to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is better than the ending to Dial of Destiny. I'm going to say that. But I also don't hate this ending. It's just that it felt so anticlimactic. Like, it just didn't feel like this was a natural ending to the character. And there's something that happens in the third act where I'm like, that's where you ended. This is where you ended. And this would fit perfectly for not just this movie, but for the quadrilogy of the Indiana Jones franchise. And I'm like, this is the moment that you could have ended it. But then they continue, and they do a different ending. And part of me believes that the original ending was the one that I thought was going to happen, but it didn't. But I feel like they didn't want to do that because they still wanted to do something else. Like, it just felt like they were trying to find a loophole in a way. And I'm trying to be vague as possible, but it felt like they were trying to do something else. And so they went with the original ending that, I don't know, to me, I just felt like the original ending was so out of field that it felt weird, you know. And I still like that third act. I like the interesting premise. There's a lot of time travel in this movie. Not a lot, but there's time travel in this movie. I like the moral and the story and the theme, because I like it when movies have themes. And this movie's obvious theme was about aging. But that's it. That's like, the ending was just kind of like, oh, really? Like, when the credits rolled, I was really like, really? This is the end to the saga that people have followed? But overall, I still enjoyed the movie. I had fun. Is it as good as the original three? I would say no, but I also don't see it so like, I have the three, like, over here in a good section. I like these movies. And I have the Dial of the Destiny, like, around here. You know, it's not as good. It doesn't hit that mark. But it's definitely, like, around there where it's like, it's enjoyable enough. It feels like an indie film. It feels like a unique take on indie also. I will say this movie does play it safe at times, but that risk of making him this aging hero was really good. But I felt for the most part, this movie kind of played it safe with the nostalgia. It's like, whoa, we can put this on the trailer. The the hat, the dun 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 dun, everything. It just kind of played it safe, which I was fine with, because I don't think people go into Indiana Jones movies expecting these great I don't expect a masterpiece. I mean, except for like people who loved and grew up with Indiana Jones. Besides that, for me, it was just kind of like, oh, okay. And I will say, it's kind of nice knowing that I actually went to a theater and watched an Indiana Jones movie when it released, because that's something I never expected I would say, But nah, that's on my checklist, that I watched an Indiana Jones movie in the theaters. So there's my review. Now, people are going to say, does this movie overshadow Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones? No, this really is an Indiana Jones movie. This movie doesn't... people saying, oh, is this movie doing like the girl boss feminism thing? Not really. I mean, yeah, the character is an ass, but really, if you really want to complain about something, you could say this movie might be ageist. But it's almost ageist because the movie requires it to be, in a way. But besides that, I don't see the woke... Look, let me put the quotation mark. The woke... Like, I guess you can argue with other things, like Ghostbusters 2016, but this movie didn't really feel woke. Could you say Phoebe Waller-Bridge was... Actually, I would say it's the opposite of woke. They put the worst writing on the female character, alright? So, yeah, because they wrote Mads Mikkelsen, but even Antonio Banderas, I didn't even know he was in the movie until he shows up. And then I saw that they actually had revealed that a long time ago, so I'm not spoiling anything. But he was far more interesting. So really, you could say this movie is the opposite of woke, because it gives the worst writing to the female character. They're like, okay, the female doesn't need good writing, so we'll just give the good writing to the male character. So, yeah, so maybe there's the real truth. But anyways, that's all I got to say for my review. Thank you guys for watching. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you think in the comments. If you've not, let me know what you thought about this review. But yeah, that's all I got to say. Not going to be doing a spoiler stream about this, because to me, this is just another movie. It's just a fun movie that I enjoyed. I ate some good popcorn, and that's it. This is not a movie I'm going to go back to. I'm not going to buy it on Blu-ray. But it's definitely a movie that exists. I had fun. And that's about it. Is it in my top 5? I would say I still prefer Flash, John Wick Chapter 4, Spideyverse, Guardians. I would say it's better than Cocaine Bear. Because Cocaine Bear, really, honestly, I regret going to the movies to go watch that movie, because that movie was not a theater movie. That's a Netflix movie. I'd say Creed 3 is better also. I wasn't it's not like I was expecting Indiana Jones to be better than these movies, but, it's just going to say that. Obviously, it's all subject. Oh, crap. What the heck? Got a piece of trash in my hair. Okay. But anyways, that's all I got to say. I know people are going to get upset. People are going to be like, oh, you're defending a woke film. You're defending a movie that destroys the Indiana Jones legacy. It's like, no, I just watched a movie in theaters and I liked it. It's not that complex, but that's all I got to say. Thank you guys for watching this review. I'll see you on the next one. Ciao.
Yeah, we broke and we know it, we don't act like all these other rappers acting like they got racks. Borrow cars, but we whipping in my mom's truck. 99 full, but act like it's a double R. Yeah, we broke and we know it, we don't act like all these other rappers acting like they got racks. Borrow cars, but we whipping in my mom's truck. 99 full, but act like it's a